Brent, you were a wedding cinematographer before here in Hawaii. Before you started on this passion project, can you talk about like how it all began?
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, yeah, so I was a wedding cinematographer living on the North Shore. At the time we started this project, I'd been doing wedding cinematography for about 10 years, so I was about 500 weddings deep, and I was feeling pretty burnt out with, you know, the whole creativity juices weren't really flowing as much as they used to. But surfing was, you know, my real passion, and that's why I was living on the North Shore. So I was kind of looking for a project, and like you said, a passion project, because this whole film was created by the labor of love. You know, there was never really any, you know, big sponsors or any like financing involved. It was just, you know, the surf community kind of donating their time, the surfers coming in for the interviews. Some of the cinematography was, you know, donated to us by like some of the most amazing surf cinematographers and photographers out there. So it, you know, it was a big collaboration with like the whole surf community. But yeah, so wedding cinematography brought me into this passion project, and then I took it a little too far. Spent 2.5 years on it when it was really only supposed to be a couple short, you know, Instagram videos of Brian's photos.
I mean, thank you for taking the time to do that, because you know this is like an amazing final product. And then to Julie, you know, Julie, if you guys didn't know, she's the voice of the film. She provided the narration for it. Can you kind of tell us how that sort of happened?
Yeah, it was just, we were just writing together to fill the narration, and you know, he basically was like, I need a filler, you know, and just fill it for me. So I did that, and then we were looking for, you know, like well-known artists to fill that void and get it going. But after presenting the film and showing the first cut to people, everyone kept saying, oh my God, I love the female voice in there. And we were getting all this good feedback on keeping the voice, the female voice in there. So it ended up sticking. So yeah.
It sounds great. It definitely breaks up the boys club feeling of the film just a little bit. You guys interviewed some real characters, and you know, it's, and so, well, now that none of them are in this room, yesterday we had Cole on stage. Who was the most interesting, and who were like the weirdest ones too?
The film showed a lot of the characters and the guys. They're all very different in a sense, like, you know, Dave Wassel is an absolute, you know, hit behind a microphone, and he's just so funny with how he presents himself. And then you got like Cole, who's just so animated that we had to like subtitle some of his interview because he wasn't even sitting in his chair for more than like 30 seconds. They were all amazing though throughout the interview, and I think again it all had to do with Brian has a really good relationship with those guys. He's been in the industry for about 40 years. So he has these great relationships with these guys, and they felt really comfortable, and that was how we were able to get, you know, those interviews that we did. Because the whole interviews, I mean, we didn't spend more than 45 minutes with the guy, so it was really quick and, you know, kind of a one-shot deal, but it worked out for us.
I mean, yeah, you guys got a lot of really awesome material. I feel like, I mean, this is the second time we screen it, and I feel like every time Dave Wassel goes on screen, everyone's just laughing at whatever story he's telling. It's so great. Okay, so we'll open it up to the audience. Anyone have any questions?
We've done a little bit of a tour, or like we first showed it in October in South Carolina and North Carolina, and it's just done like a film festival tour. So we've shown it all over, including Australia and Europe and Africa now, and you know, here. So yeah, it's kind of doing its own little tour, but it actually will be released on iTunes on August 13th.
Yes.
Did you start with an outline? How did you figure how you would organize it?
Well, when I met Brian, we kind of sat down and discussed like 5 of his favorite photos that he wanted to get backstories on, and those were going to be shorts just for his Instagram and just kind of a social media thing. And after we sat down with all the surfers, I realized like we had all this content, and then we were like donating so much like, you know, cinema and photos that it was like putting the pieces together. I realized there was like a bigger story. And I kind of went to Brian and said, man, like, you know, I'd rather do a bigger project that kind of sticks around a lot longer than these little shorts that are here one day and forgotten the next. So that's, I think how it all kind of came together.
Do you find yourself veering more towards as a filmmaker, or are you more like a journalist? So when you were putting these things together, what was your mindset?
That's a really good question. Well, I kind of lived, like I remembered all those swells because I was obsessed with surfing for like ever. So I had like all my own questions. So when I got to sit down and ask them, they're quite like what I had in my mind. I guess that's the journalism part of it, but all in all, you know, filmmaking is definitely trumps that. You know, we're kind of looking into doing more like scripted films and stuff like that along those lines. So I would say filmmaking over journalism.
There we go. Yes, back there.
This question is for you. How do you go about finding all these films, putting them together, finding out, organizing, and can you tell us the process there?
I basically kind of like, you know, keep in touch with the surf community and the surf news, because anytime like a big film or a great clip comes out, you know, it makes it into like the inertia or something like that. I also always look at what's happening with other surf film festivals around the world. I mean, we're definitely like the longest. Like, I don't know if any other festival goes for a whole month. So we really have to like, you know, get a really big program, and you know, there's so much content out there. It's really just looking for and getting in contact. Actually, with Brent and Julie, we had actually met a year and a half ago. They were visiting and they just got in touch, and we're like, I was like, why don't you come down to the museum and then we can talk about it. And so it's, you know, we kind of just made a personal connection, and then you know, just touch base, and finally the film was ready, and we were like, okay, let's include it in this year's fest, and that's kind of how it goes. I mean, if you want to know the stats about this year, like about 100 films were screened, and then it's been whittled down to like 50 shorts and features for the final lineup. So yeah, thank you for that question. Question right here. Yes.
How did you pick the music?
Good question. Well, it came to a point where we were very limited on the music that we were to use because we didn't have a budget, but we still wanted to make it to iTunes. So we found this website, it's called Soundstripe, and I spent hours upon hours upon hours listening to music and kind of working it, and I'd try it, and if I didn't like it, I'd switch it, and eventually it would just click, or I would hear a song and I would automatically know that that's perfect for this part of the film. So I actually spend probably more time looking for music than I do editing, so I guess that's where it all comes from.
Yes, back there.
I have a question. So I liked the, you did some of the pictures, the stills of the surfers and then the movement around that. Was that influenced by the photographers or something that you wanted to add?
Yeah, there's a company, if you have Instagram, they're called Plotaverse, Plota verse, and they take Brian's one of their like photographers where they take his photos and they bring them to life, and they use it on their platform to kind of share, and they were completely stoked that we were including it in the film, so it kind of worked out for us as well.
Any other questions for me? Yes, right there.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of surfing films, but I think that this piece that you did signals an absolute renaissance. And that.
Oh my gosh, thank you so much.
Very, very much.
Thank you, I'm glad you
Just
enjoyed it.
raised the bar.
Thank you for that comment.
Glad.
Yeah. Any other questions or comments from the audience? Yes, right here.
For that last while, you didn't show how many children surfing? Or was that not?
At Cloud Break, that was just paddle. It was paddling. Yeah.
A lot more dangerous. Question here?
Because so many people contributed to this film, and I'm assuming, again, you said it's a passion project, it didn't cost you as much as it would normally be.
Mm-hmm.
Are you still able to monetize the project in some way? If you put it on iTunes, it's...
Yeah. There's a significant recoup cost in it, so a lot of the time and effort. But yeah, if it does make money, that is definitely something that we have discussed with, and that'd be a great situation to be in. But yes, as for now, since there really isn't any you know, we just completely, you know, give the credit to where the credit is due. Because, you know, a lot of that film wouldn't, you know, I just kind of pieced it together, but a lot of the footage was these guys going to Chopu and going to Cloudbreak, and these surfers putting their lives on, you know, the line, and the interviews, and Brian's library, and Jolie's library, and it's just like, it's kind of cool because everyone who contributed was, you know, we were straight up telling them, like, we don't have any plans of this getting to any sort of level. It is a passion project, it is a labor of love, and if people like it, then, you know, that's awesome. But
so did you put together the questions, or did Brian put together the questions to sort of box the interviewees into a contained area?
Exactly. Brian had his own set of questions where we used a lot of them, and Brian usually led the interviews, and then I kind of would spitball off of what Brian would say. You know, he would ask something, and then something would cue in my head to be like, oh, this would be a great feed after. So I was there for more of like the follow-up questions, but Brian had his questions that he wanted to ask, and again, I had mine just to kind of help with the storyline. So. And
was your Stab magazine video for Andy Irons photo, was that sort of the artist proof for this whole film?
Yes, that was actually the first. And that was called The Story Behind the Photo, which was the original idea for this. And we did the Andy Irons, if you've seen the Billabong Pipeline Pro poster from 2014, it's Andy paddling out looking at this perfect barrel. So we did the story behind that, and yeah, it's on Stab magazine still, so if you want to check it out, that's where this whole thing really stemmed from. And the interviews from that were actually used in this film with Bruce, so that was all on the same day.
All right, I think we have time for one more question. Anyone has last couple? Yes.
So that wave at Chopu in Fuji, and when it first starts, like I said, it's going to be about 8 feet. What exactly happens there where it just becomes this monster? Does the reef drop and hit something, or how does it become this 30-foot wave that just looks like it's going to kill everybody?
Yeah, Nathan Fletcher kind of describes it. It's like almost dry reef, and it's just this mound of water coming from just open ocean. It's the open ocean swell, and it just hits the reef. And the way it hits, it just literally sucks up and like kind of throws over. And that's, you know, Nathan kind of mentions that briefly in the film.
Have people died out there? Is that why the government wasn't really fond about it?
I'm not certain about any deaths at Chopu. I know there has been actually, because in the film there's a tombstone that we used. I'm not sure who it was, but I know there has been one or two there.
Do you know what Te Ahu Po'o means?
No.
It means wall of skulls.
Oh, that is, yes, it does, yes.
And thank you for pronouncing it, Kyle. we were discussing, I mean, yeah, you saw the outtakes with Brian. I spoke to someone and they're like, Tahitian is really close to Hawaiian, so how you probably pronounce it in Hawaiian is Te Ahu Po'o. So thank you for sharing that, and hopefully, you know, spreading that pronunciation out there. Okay, so with that, you know, thank you guys, thank you Brent and Julie for being here so much, and thank you all for joining us as well tonight. If you enjoyed this film, we do have the Audience Choice Awards this year. Please just put a vote for it outside in the lobby. There are little things right now.
Maybe you don't like me, you don't have to like me, that's alright. That is no good reason to believe that we should fuss and fight. Such a bad scene, unexpected, like a bad dream, troubled time. Emotion, earthquake, real heartbreak, shaking on a scary ride.